Welcome to today's Explainer. You know that weird feeling when you just know exactly who's calling before you even look at your phone? Or, say, you get this sudden, inexplicable wave of emotion right before a close friend shares some bad news with you? Well, today we're diving into a text that says those aren't just random coincidences. We're going to explore this totally fascinating idea that telepathy isn't some supernatural superpower reserved for comic book heroes. It's actually a completely natural, deeply human language that we've kind of just forgotten how to speak. So let's completely rethink how we connect with the world around us.
Okay, to really get this, we have to start with this incredible origin story. The author introduces us to twins who, way before learning a single word of English, communicated through pure, wordless laughter. Just imagine that level of connection for a second. In what they call the pre-birth tunnel of arrival, the author remembers telling his brother, Jean, to go down this incredibly bright tunnel first, just to check it out. John goes ahead, feels this profound rush of ecstasy and a deep sense of homecoming, and signals back to his brother that it's safe. That shared, joyous laughter as they entered the world, that was their very first communication. They didn't start life learning to speak. They started it learning to listen to each other's essence.
Part 1. The original language, communicating beneath words.
So growing up, people around these kids actually thought the twins had speech problems. Why? Because they just weren't using spoken English to get their point across. But the truth is, they were actually utilizing a state of consciousness that most of us completely forget as adults. Telepathy, at least in their everyday experience, is really just unblocked communication. It's this deeply grounded, innate human trait, not magic, not alien. They were simply living with their inner senses wide open enough to truly receive what the other was broadcasting without all that normal interference.
And their shared language wasn't built on syntax or grammar or vocabulary. It was so much deeper. They communicated seamlessly through images, profound emotions, physical sensations, lived experiences, and just this deep, intrinsic knowing. It's actually wild when you picture it. Like, if John wanted to show his brother an apple, he wasn't going to say, "Hey, look at this red, round thing." No, he sent the absolute synesthetic experience of the apple. Its crisp sweetness, the exact texture against the teeth, its vibrant color, the total essence. It was an effortless, natural exchange of complete concepts, and it was understood instantly.
Part 2. A house that responds, the physical mirror of the invisible.
Now, their physical environment was just as mind-blowing, and it actively nurtured this connection. Imagine growing up in what they called a house of the future. Sure, it was technologically advanced, but more importantly, it was spiritually aware. The invisible world was constantly interacting with the physical one. Just picture this: lights that instinctively responded when you walked in a room, windows adapting to the shifting weather outside, cameras tracking movement seamlessly, and then you have pans literally floating in midair, and lamps glowing warmly without even being plugged into a wall. The house itself was their first real teacher. It proved to them every single day that absolutely everything is connected, everything communicates, and the physical world naturally responds to human consciousness.
Part 3. The 5 Inner Senses. Validation in India.
So years later, the author travels to India, right? And he discovers something huge. This wordless connection from his childhood wasn't just some quirky, isolated twin phenomenon. There is actually an ancient, highly documented framework that perfectly maps to how they lived as kids. It turns out we have an inner version for every single physical sense. Inner sight isn't about your physical eyeballs. It's the ability to visualize and send complex images. Inner hearing lets you receive pure meaning, completely bypassing words. Inner touch, that's physically feeling someone else's emotions right in your own body. Inner taste is this profound ability to actually sense truth. And inner smell is used to instantly recognize someone's presence, even from far away. Seeing this ancient framework laid out just proved to the author they weren't specially gifted kids. They were just completely unblocked.
Part 4. The world that forgot. The shift to the outer world. But as we all know, we grow older, and society demands a totally different way of operating. We're essentially trained to trade all of that quiet, expansive feeling of our inner senses, the gentle images, those subtle emotions and deep knowings, for the sharp, demanding noise of the external world. To get by in modern society, we have to rely on spoken words, loud sounds, rigid labels, and strictly linear logic. Everything has to be categorized, and as we pick up these blunt, external tools, our internal telepathic channel just quiets down. The outside world gets louder and louder, effectively burying our innate abilities so deep underground that we barely even remember they exist.
But here is the absolute best news. This ability isn't lost to you. It is merely dormant. It has never actually disappeared from your biology or your consciousness. The author beautifully compares this connection to a powerful river flowing deep beneath the earth. Even if you can't see it on the surface right now, it is still moving, it is still completely alive, and it is literally just waiting for you to tap back into it.
Part 5. The Ledger of Connection. The core thesis of consciousness.
This brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this whole journey, which completely flips how we think about telepathy. Here's the core thesis. Connection is the foundation of consciousness, not communication, connection. You see, true telepathy isn't about aggressively trying to force your thoughts into someone else's head. Instead, it is what the author so eloquently calls the ledger of the soul. It represents this beautiful, delicate balance between our inner and outer worlds, between self and other, and ultimately between the human and the cosmic.
Okay, so how do we actively get back to this state? How do we find that hidden river? Well, awakening this connection in your own life doesn't mean striving or straining to force a brand new skill. It's about genuine presence in the moment. It requires a quiet sensitivity to the subtle shifts around you. It's about slowing down enough to find balance in your own breath and cultivating enough openness to finally receive the universe that is and always has been speaking to you. Honestly, you are basically just tuning the dial on a radio you already own.
There's this profound piece of wisdom from a figure in the text named Zoran, who beautifully whispers, "Traveler, telepathy is not a gift, is the original language of consciousness. The dragon's sight begins where human words end." I mean, wow. That breathtaking idea really reminds us of the sheer mythic scale of our own awareness. Your awareness is deeply rooted far beneath the clumsy structure of human language.
So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. What dormant connections are you ignoring beneath the noise of your own life? Take a moment after this is over to just sit and listen. And not just with your ears, but with your inner senses, with that original language of consciousness. Just let yourself be open to receive. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today to explore this fascinating topic. Stay curious and keep learning.